Not quite.
What's up?
Sell my car on Carvana. It's just not quite the right time.
Crazy coincidence. I just sold my car to Carvana.
What? I told you about it 2 days ago.
When you know, you know. You know? I'm even dropping it off at one of those sweet car vending machines and getting paid today.
That's a good deal.
Oh, great deal. Come on. What's your heart saying?
You're right. When you know...
You know.
Sold.
Whether you're looking to sell your car right now or just whenever feels right, go to Carvana.com and sell your car the convenient way. Terms and conditions apply.
Shop Macy's VIP sale, going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Hi.
Dave, we're back.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
It's been we're now on the other side of 5 years.
Yeah, it was a long trip, 5 years long.
Yeah, 5 years long indeed. 5 years of cool interviews
with many more to go.
5 years of super cool interviews, much like the one that we're gonna have today.
Yes.
So I am not going to. I've spent 5 years not doing it, so I think I'm going to continue not doing it. So I'm not going to bury the lead, Dave.
It's your thing at this point.
Yeah, I'm just not going to do it. But I am really, really excited about today's guest, this week's guest. Quick shout out to our friends at Toy Migos, our friends at Toying Around, Kevin, and super shout to Toy Farce, who just celebrated a birthday. Toy Farce was the one who actually tuned me into this week's guest and brought them to my attention, and then I went and enjoyed some previous interviews. I think the one that I listened to the most recently was actually the Yes Have Some guys. So Toy Anxiety had our guest on, and an awesome interview there. So Dave Igo is one of the best toy artists you've probably never heard of. After designing for Gentle Giant and then putting in a decade of work at Sideshow Collectibles, he has launched a Kickstarter for Monstors, an unapologetically epic homage to the weird, buff, and bizarre toys of the 80s and 90s. Here to talk about his journey through the toy world and to tell us all about Monstors, we welcome Dave Igo to Adventures in Collecting. Dave, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks. I didn't know if I was on screen yet. It's like a different thing than the other one. So I thought I was in this small waiting room. I didn't know if they could see me the whole time. Just like, hurry up. I got stuff to do. You know, just like so impatient, like huffing, like, jeez, you know. So
yeah, we don't have that cool setup. Notes to Zencaster, our wonderful platform that we use every week. Maybe get us a little like green room waiting area, so that way we don't have to like be like, shh, you're.
I thought I was in the waiting room. I'm like just off to the side. I'm slightly small. So I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. When do I jump out and yell surprise?
So when this airs, when we introduce you, you'll get a nice little like bloop, and like through the magic of editing, you'll just appear.
Yeah.
Sweet. I accept the magic of editing, making me and my appearance more epic. So thank you and good night.
Perfect. What an interview.
You're done.
Nailed it. We did it.
5 years, guys. You did it. Half a decade. I'm glad to make this awkward. No.
the best. I can't think of a better way to kick off year 6 of the podcast with the shortest interview we've ever done. So Dave, before we hop into all of the cool things that you have going on and your history with toys, the first question we ask all of our guests: what are you currently collecting, and what are some of your recent pickups?
So 2 different things there. Currently collecting is I'm mainly going back and like touching base with a lot of the vintage toys I never had, or I lost, or I sold when I was in junior high. So I've been buying a bunch of my classic Ninja Turtles back, and then all the ones I didn't have. I think I got all the Motu ones I want. I just got a bunch of Bucky O'Hare stuff, which is cool. Got a couple of Toxic Crusaders. I'm a little bit pickier with them because I like cool gross, but not gross, you know? And there's some like, it's fun stuff. I'm just like, does it fit my collection? You know, so a lot of that stuff. And then a recent pickup was I got into the Sarazoric Warriors. I got this cool punk rock, you know, Stegosaur guy who's fun. So I got the whole series 1 actually, but this was just like the one I'm opening next. So pretty excited about that. From Boss Fight Studios. They do great stuff.
They really do.
I love my 4 Horsemen, bro. So I got the Cosmic Legions variant, like the homage piece to one of our classic characters, you know, from the 80s. And I don't know, just like I've been buying a bunch of like older stuff, like Ninja Turtles, Extreme Dinosaurs. So it's been fun. Like kind of going back and picking up a couple like late 2019 was right when I got back into kind of like buying vintage He-Man and Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. And I actually went down the crazy He-Man international variant rabbit hole, which is insane and expensive. And I have now 26 unique mermans because he's my favorite. So yeah, I needed to get like a lineup of all. I think I'm like 6 away from having all of them, but
oh wow,
yeah, it's insane. It's crazy. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool.
The one thing that I like how you mentioned like the right kind of gross, and I feel like the Toxic Crusaders towed that line because it's one of those things that like there are a few toy lines from the 90s that should have never been marketed to like kids based on their source material.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
And like I would say between Aliens, those like super cool Kenner Aliens.
Oh
toys,
no, and Toxic Crusaders by far wins that.
Yeah, just like absolutely insane that became a kids show.
Yeah, it was nuts. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say they somehow managed to make like the Toxic Avenger adorable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah, this is the one I got recently. I got a Junkyard, I think his name is, the dog. Like, it totally fits like the stuff I've been getting lately. So this is like the one I got. I might get Toxie later, but yeah, I'm kind of just I'm dangerously a completist, so I really have to. Nope, that's the one I really want. And even like I bought like wave 1 of a toy line, and there's 5. I'm like, I really only like 3 of them, so I just gave 2 to my buddy. He does a bit every like once a month. Like he does at a toy shop in Burbank called Blast from the Past. The first Friday of every month, they get stand-up comedians in there, and they do a thing called Mint on Card. My buddy Jeff May hosts it, and he pulls in different comedians. Then they do like a raffle. So whenever I have like toys I don't really want to sell, but I just need to get out of here, I just give them to him, and he does like little raffle giveaways and stuff. So
That's cool.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Next time you're in LA, or next time we're in LA.
Yeah, Burbank. Yeah, Blast in the Past, first Friday of every month. It's awesome.
Yeah, and this is always the time to mention Toxic Avenger, first superhero from New Jersey.
Yeah.
Filmed part of the movie filmed in our hometown.
It's true.
Jeez,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. Yeah, it's such a weird. I'm really excited about the remake. I love Peter Dinklage, so we'll see what happens. You know, like how crazy they're gonna get, or what. I'm excited. We'll see. It'd be a fun one. Like I love with like, not to jump ahead too much, but like with Monstors, just kind of like my hybrid of certain things. Like I want to find like what's a new gross thing that could be successful. Like what is the next Toxic Crusaders, like Mad Balls, Garbage Pail Kids, But like, what would make that cool now? Like, what would hold up in this day and age? Like for the modern collector, like that'd be a fun challenge to think of. Like
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Before we dive too deep into Monstors, tell us a bit about your journey as a designer. How did you get started in the world of toys?
Man, so I got lucky. So I've been collecting toys. Like, I mean, when I was in high school, I had a job, and my parents are cool and supportive, and they're like, "Hey, if you want a car, save up, buy a car. Hey, if you get in a wreck, pay for the wreck." But that's really all you have to pay for. Like my parents, like I gotta live like they took care of me. So I had this job where basically I could half the paycheck just put into whatever I wanted. So I was buying like McFarlane toys. I was a huge McFarlane toy collector in junior high and high school. So I loved toys, but I never really thought of that as like a career. I owned a couple of statues, but not many. So I went to school. I wanted to be a comic book artist. I was drawing comic book art 4th grade through high school. I wanted to be a comic book artist. Didn't work out. So I applied to go to Cal Arts Animation School. They didn't accept me. So I went to a local art school in Denver, Colorado. And I learned new animation program. Like, cool, I should be an animator. But it was all experimental, weird stuff. So when I finished that program, I had this portfolio that was like really eclectic. I had traditional sculpt. I had digital modeling in Maya that I didn't really understand. And then I had a bunch of drawing and illustration stuff. And so I had this portfolio and no one knew what to do with me. So I went out to California, went to Comic-Con, went to SIGGRAPH, applied. No one was hiring or no one was hiring me. So I found out about this place called Vancouver Film School, went there for a year and a half to focus on 3D modeling, visual effects for film and television video games, thinking like that's how I can get a job being an artist. When I finished school, I went back to Comic-Con and I met Carl Meyer, the owner of Gentle Giant, and he liked my drawing portfolio. And he's like, "Hey man, you want to draw?" I'm like, "Yes." So he hired me to draw at his company. They made statues and collectibles. They're not as much toys, more like resin mini busts of Star Wars, packed in collector exclusives for like DVDs and Blu-rays, or sometimes cases. I would design cases. Like I designed this for the Edward Norton Hulk one. I designed a case. I don't know if it got made, but it was like a brick wall that would slide open and it had Hulk's face down, like his fingers, like he was like breaking out a wall. So there's like a bunch of weird, fun stuff like that. So that's how I got into drawing and consumer products. And there'd be some toy-ish things, but nothing like highly articulated action figures or anything like that. Mostly statues, some smaller figurine things, pack-ins, whatever. So then I was there for 3 years, went to Sideshow Collectibles and I was there for 10 years, designer turned art director. And I was mainly focused on their statue line, but I did help out a little bit with their 1/6 scale, like articulated line with Star Wars and G.I. Joe. Not a ton. They offered like, "Hey, do you want to draw this?" I'm like, I don't know anything. Like the people that were working on the G.I. Joe 1/6 scale line, they were like huge into like military stuff. So they knew gun terminal, all this stuff. I'm like, I'm an idiot with guns. So I didn't know like what are accurate pouches for this military thing. So I'm like, if you guys have a designer that knows this stuff, you should work with them. Cause I would just like make a cool helmet or make a cool thing that's made up. But they're like, no. And like this gun has a sight scope, like they're really military accurate. I'm like, I would, if you need me to, I will do this. But if you're saying I have a choice, I would be better drawing Wolverine in a pose over here, So I did that. And then, I've been at Tweeterhead for the last 5 years or 4 years and change, and creative director in charge of their statues for He-Man, Thundercats, Myths and Monsters. And then I help out with some DC stuff too. So I've been working in the last 18 years, probably like 90% was statues and like 8% or 7-8% was other like consumer products things. And like 3% I got to do a little bit of like film design work, video game design work and stuff like that, which is really cool. I got to work on Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland for 4 months as a designer.
Cool.
That was a long time ago, but that was a fun movie to work on. And then, I've just always, at a certain point, I just, I've been doing this for 18 years. And at the time I was like, oh, I've been doing this for 15 years or whatever it was. Like, what makes me happy again? Because when you get paid to be in this world for so long, sometimes your compass gets a little bit skewed because it's like the 9 to 5 and like you're trying to appease like the company you work for and the licensors. And then every once in a while you need to take a step back, like, what makes me happy? And I was like, these things make me happy. So in 2019, that's when I started to rebuy like my my He-Man stuff, and then that led into Ninja Turtles, that led into other weird, fun animal stuff, and that's when I realized this is the stuff I love, this is what I want to make. So started to do it on my own. I mean, I'm still doing Tweeterhead, and I have a statue company with my new business partner, Todd. We have a company called Reventure. We have the Frank Frazetta license, so we can make Frazetta statues.
Very cool.
We're doing that.
Awesome.
So then Igo stuff is my third job, basically. So staying a little busy, you know?
Yeah, just a couple things on your plate.
Just a little bit.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. I mean, you have such a textured kind of past, you know, in the industry, touching so many different licenses and formats and everything. Out of all of that, and we kind of alluded to it in the intro, and you know, you just kind of alluded to it again. But what really inspired Monstors? So where did the concept come from?
Yeah, it was kind of just like, it was so the pandemic happened in 2020. I was commissioning a buddy to design and sculpt these little like Pesci inspired takes on Gilman.
Oh wow.
So if you guys aren't familiar with Pesci, they're like the small muscle flesh tone figures.
Yeah, Kaneko Man. Yep.
Yeah. So I was just like, hey, this artist Balkan, hey, you want to design and sculpt like a Gilman for me? He did it. Then it was a Cthulhu. Then we did this Cthulhu next. These were done in Super Sculpey. So these were traditionally sculpted.
Man.
This isn't in the computer at all. This is all Super Sculpey.
Oh wow.
That's
this
awesome.
thing's crazy.
Look at the
So
detail
I got
on
these
that.
done just for me for fun, you know, and then I'm like, hey, other people like these. So I decided to do some resin castings and sell them and then make my money back at PayPal. Then once I got to a point of financial, like, oh, I broke even. Then Paul, like I worked on a pricing structure with Paul. Like, hey, let's split this, you know, where it makes sense. Cause thank you, you know, like I want to pocket all myself. So it was cool. I'm like, oh, I can maybe do this. Like people like the ideas I have. I know how to connect the right talent to the right thing. So it was early 2021. I was walking with my wife or walking our dog. And I was like, you know, just like thinking about stuff. I came back to my toy collection looking. I'm like, what don't I have that I want? And I realized like what I love is I love like the buff stuff. Like I love He-Man. I love like Ninja Turtles. Like I've been drawing comic book anatomy like my whole life. So I'm like an anatomy nerd. So I'm like, all right, I like that. And then I love creature design. So let's do some animal bad guy looking cool creature hybrid stuff. And I was like, what literally don't I have that would fit the gaps in my collection? So I realized I wanted a shark character. I had street sharks, but it was like I wanted something that fit more with like the He-Man Ninja Turtles, less like the giant torso head with the arms coming out of like where the ears would be, basically, you know, kind of
yeah.
Which I love. I just wanted something that fit more. Like, why don't I have a shark head He-Man character? Why don't I have why wasn't Armageddon the Ninja Turtles character from the fighting game that NECA did a figure of? Like, why did they ever do him in like the Playmate style? It's like, I want a shark. But I'm like, but how do I make this a little bit different? So I love mashups. Mashups are like a favorite thing of mine. So I'm like, I want to do an animal mashup. I want a shark with bull horns. So I'm like, that would be cool. I haven't seen that before. And then when I was walking with my wife, that's when I was like, what would really make that gel well? And I'm like, well, bulls or cows are black and white and orcas are black and white. So let's make that the mashup. Like and that could tether them together. It's a fun contrast because you get the sea life thing. You get the bovine hoof feet. So it was a fun, like, hey, these don't really belong together, but I haven't seen this done this way. And then I was like, you know, what's the next thing that would go with it? So it's not just all aquatic theme and wouldn't be viewed as just like street sharks. So that's where I was looking. I'm like, I love my scale tail from Ninja Turtles, but it doesn't have legs. So he's always like leaning because of his weird tail lower half.
Yep.
And I love claw hand characters. Like I love Clawful's one of my favorite characters. So I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to have a snake with feet and a claw arm. So I'm like, instead of doing a crab because that's too close to Clawful, let's do a scorpion. Then he can have a scorpion tail. Just the idea of a cobra hood, fangs, claw, scorpion tail. I'm like, that makes him look like triple threat evil, you know? So those became the first two characters in Monsters. And I just started to write a long list of animals I like that I think look visually awesome and some that might be underserved in my collection. Like, oh, hey, there's a lot of turtles. I don't need a turtle character anytime soon. So let me do this character. Let me try like this thing. Oh, hey, I have an elephant, but I don't have a woolly mammoth. Like I don't have a hairy elephant. Oh, I don't really have there's kind of a bear character too, but not one that like I'm really like, oh yeah, that's the bear character I want. So I started just come up with like this list, and that's how like Monsters started to happen. And I was talking about a lot of this with the designer Erwin Papa, who's amazing. So we hopped on a phone call, started, oh my God, what if, and then he started drawing. So yeah.
You guys are like the plastic Isle of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, I was
like,
gonna say.
Just like
a lot less
time.
evil, a lot more playful, a lot more fun. You go to the island of Dr. Moreau, you're kind of like, something's amiss here. You know, you just come here and it's fun.
Yeah.
No, but that's awesome. Very, very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. You kind of alluded to things not being, or things that you didn't have in your collection, or things that were underrepresented. But did you have any sort of internal style guide or like rules that you were going by when you were designing the creatures for the project?
Yeah, so I knew I wanted them to be like buff, you know, and I knew I wanted them to be like all two-legged, not like, oh, there's a centaur character. You know, I'm just like, just to have, because it's a great question, because I love posing this to like when I'm responsible for an artist, like when I'm a creative, like my creative director job at Twitter, I try to give an artist like a box to work, like a framework to work within. So they can be creative within that, not just give them a blank check, a blank canvas, because then artists can really spin out of control. It doesn't really help them. So to give myself one, I'm like, I want to come up with a formula. So I'm like, I like 2 legs, 2 arms, keeps it easy. I like the 2 animal mashup. And those are the main things. And when Erwin and I were talking about like things I like and don't like. And some of the Ninja Turtle characters I wish I had slightly different are ones without like tennis shoes and wristwatches and stuff like, and bow ties or something. You know, I'm like, I wish there's a little bit more. Oh, the ones I like are more barbarian warrior leaning, like He-Man. So I want to keep it all tribal, barbarian, you know, like it could be Viking, it could be whatever, just like no modern stuff and no technology either. No laser guns, eyesights, any of that stuff. And I have ideas for that stuff later, but like I want to keep like this is this, right? And then very little, if any, found object stuff. Like Shamumu has his anchor in the cowbell, and that's kind of it. Otherwise, everything else is kind of like it looks made by them or looks like it was found by them. Not like, oh, I found this like there's a term for it. I forgot what it's called. But like, oh, here's a license plate from a car, right? It's like, oh, well, there aren't cars in this world. Like, even though the anchor's like a weird, like, they're like, I want the anchor, not to jump ahead too far, but there's a story outline I'm working on for a possible cartoon show pitch. Just like if things go well, like what would the cartoon show pitch be? And the anchor that Shamumu has is actually kind of important because it's the only sign that humans really ever existed here, if that makes sense. Maybe. Maybe like, maybe it's an anchor from another ship, from another thing, but there's no ships or anything else really yet. It's kind of like
it's a proper artifact.
Yeah. Like there could be something else, and we haven't answered that yet. So like leaving it open. So,
very cool.
Yeah, I love that. Like, and you said before, you know, especially talking about He-Man. Like, I'm thinking like, why was there never like a Bite tour? That was like, you know, a shark head, you know, He-Man figure. But like, it's
like
cool.
there was Skunkor, like
Skunkor.
Yeah, Stinkor, guys.
Stinkor.
Right.
Oh man,
I know I'm the He-Man guy here. Don't worry,
we're gonna get our cards revoked.
Yeah, I can tell you, I had to keep him in a plastic baggie in the bin back in the day. That's
yeah. He actually smelled. And then Mossman had a little. No, he didn't have it. I don't know if he had or not. But yeah, Stinkor had the patchouli kind of a thing going on with him.
Mossman was flocked, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was definitely flocked. I just forgot if he also had a little scent to him. I don't think he did. But yeah, like with He-Man, so many of the bad guys look cool. It's like Skeletor looks cool, Trapjaw looks cool, Merman looks cool, like Beastman looks cool, Spikor, Too Bad. They were like all the cool characters. And then the good guys were like,
Too Bad's great.
Yeah, then the good guys are like a buff blonde guy. Like, it's cool because it's the main character, but really, like, if this IP never existed, someone's like, all right, I have a new IP. It's a buff blonde guy. You know what I mean? It's like, does he have tattoos? What's like, you know, like what? Like, it's not talking trash. You know what I mean? It's just like, and then their Man at Arms is cool, but it's like a white dude with a mustache and orange armor. It's like, all right, cool. Ram Man. All right, I guess. You know, and like, all right, but don't worry, we got you now with Mecha-Neck. It's like, dude, come on. Like, where's like a cool animal guy? Like, oh, we'll give you a bird monkey Stratos. Like, all right, he's kind of cool. Buzz-Off's kind of cool, but he has like a weird pervy smiley face. It's like, you know, Snout Spout's my favorite of the heroic warriors because it's so ridiculous. It's like I actually have him here, but yeah, it's like an elephant, you know, Elephant Man. It's like so ridiculous, it works. And I wish they had actually have two of him. Yeah, that one and have my vintage one. But this, I wish more good guys looked cool. Like even in Star Wars, if Star Wars never existed, someone brought it stage 1 today. George Lucas like, all right, my hero is this little blonde white guy in a robe. It's like, all right, cool. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like but he has a laser sword. It's like, all right, that makes him cool. All right, who's his mentor? Is his mentor like cool rat or something? Like, no, it's this old white guy in a brown robe. It's like, oh, come on, man. You're like, where's the cool looking, like, without any, they're cool because of the context of like what we grew up with in the movie.
Yeah.
But I wanted characters that were just cool without any context. It's like you just look at them, you're like, and those are cool. Are they good? Are they bad? I think he's bad. He might be good, but he looks kind of crazy. So that's what I wanted. I wanted more like, I love my Clawfuls, my Whiplashes, my Ratlors, my Trap Jaws. I want like that, you know?
Mosquitor with the little blood pump thing.
I loved that figure.
That was always a good one.
He would be just like straight up murderer. Like of the
he stabs you with his face. It's like that's pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, He-Man and Masters of the Universe was always about the bad guys. I mean, the bad guys were always where it was at. That there were some of the most toyetic things ever.
For me, it was cool because I was a little blonde kid with a bowl haircut, and like Luke Skywalker and He-Man were blonde dudes with bowl haircuts.
You could relate.
I could relate.
I never really cared to have something I could relate to. I just wanted something that was cool looking. Like I love, like again, like I love like things that just look cool. I'm not like, man, I really relate to Clawful because I'm red and I have a claw arm. I have sunburned skin condition. You know, that's just me though. Some people are like, characters are relatable. I'm like, I think you just need cool characters and a cool story. You know?
See, part of the other thing though was, could I be it for Halloween?
Oh, that's a good point.
That's solid. So speaking of things that look really cool, a lot of creators have tried to capture the essence of the 80s and 90s in their toys, especially now. You know, nostalgia is a big deal, big selling point. What are some of the key elements that you focused on from that time period while developing Monstors?
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know if I intentionally was like studying the 80s and 90s as much as I was like living my life and just had this like thing, all these things in the back of my head just baking and stewing. Like what I like, again, looking at my collection that happens to be toys from the late, like early 80s through early 90s. I wasn't like studying there like, how do I make this work exactly with this? It was just kind of like a natural thing of like, it was kind of the size, kind of the buff body, and then the other thing, too, is the thing that really strikes me, I'm actually colorblind. And by colorblind, I mean I can still see color, but like blues and purples kind of overlap a little bit. So I can't tell you if it's blue or purple. Or bright green and yellow are so similar to me. It's like they become the same thing. But I love like bright, weird colors. Were always like the thing that stuck out to me. So working with Erwin Poppy has a great color design sensibility. So I'm just like, go. Like when we designed a character, then we did color later, and he would do like A, B, or C, who do like 3 different color palettes, and they're all insanely awesome. So I'd be like, they're all cool, but I guess I like this one slightly more than the other two. What do you think? And he would, you know, agree or disagree, and we'd have a discussion. So I think it was like part intentional, part just like, this is what I like from all these years of things I like. Because even there's stuff that's like some Image Comics is infused in there, like a little bit, you know, in a weird way. So it's kind of like just everything I've loved in my life kind of put in a blender, and it biases slightly towards like the 80s and 90s. So I think things that I've heard from other people that make them feel that connection is that they are fun, super expressive. Like you look at like old Ninja Turtle toys and there's like weird, funny expressions, and you get like, you know, the Rat Fink era stuff, like from Ed Roth, which is like 60s, 70s, and 80s, and that like influenced a lot of people in the 80s. And then expressive hands and weird posing stuff and just like bizarre, like doesn't really make sense but kind of does as long as it looks cool. And like just like the extra little detail splatters on there, you know, like I love that about a lot of the Playmates toys stuff is you can like look at them and they each have like a weird little Easter eggy thing on them somewhere, you know, or multiple Easter eggs. So it's kind of like that. And even guys like James Groman, who's been designing and working in toys since like the 80s, you know, he worked on the original Barnyard Commandos and Mad Balls and stuff like that. And his stuff he's doing now, his personal work has like a lot of that fun Easter egg. Just like, oh, this thing has a splatter on it and a bone sticking out of it. And you're just like, you wouldn't, like when you look at this thing, it's crazy. And you're like, oh, look at that one thing there. So this is like, it's cool that that's kind of like coming back in the last like 5-8 years, so.
I love that you brought up the colors, because that I was hoping you were going to mention that, because that was the thing that actually jumped out at me when I first saw the Kickstarter page, was just those like shocking, almost like violent colors. I mean,
like violently vibrant. Let's say that.
Violently vibrant. Yeah, I mean, like you look at the shelf behind you, and some of the toys that you named earlier in the in the interview, like those Bucky O'Hare figures, especially, those colors are just so saturated. They're so rich. The greens, the reds, like it's just it's incredible. And of course, Turtles, the wild color palettes on that. But you would never,
or like Triceratons always one that sticks out with me, and Brown Chuck, like he's like primary color splatter. It's like it's just like things pop and they look cool, and they bizarrely make sense, even though they're like so like you said, the intensity is just like just like the dial is like to a 13 or whatever. It's like, whoa, I love it.
Yeah, well, we all grew up in the era of like day glow and like bright colors, and stuff didn't start getting darker until like mid to late 90s. Yeah. So even think about like NES Jason. He's purple and teal, like
yeah, it's true,
and it rules.
Love it. Yeah, and I think too the thing that's really helped with the color. It wasn't like my intention was I want to go bright and colorful so they really pop. It just like I just thought they were fun. And then a bonus thing of that is when I've gone to conventions, I have a display. They really pop, and like in a lot of conventions, like a lot of stuff might feel samey. So like if a lot of things are more muted and realistic, then they all kind of like blah. Then over there, someone sees like this, whoop, and they're just like, "What is that?" And like moth to a flame, I lure them in, and they see them, and it's fun. Like Mad Hatter like saw the stuff from a distance, like what are these? It's just like it's cool that like they really grab people from a distance because they pop. So I try to have that be with like the display of the figures, the logo of the figures. I want everything to just pop. And then when you have a toy collection, and a lot of stuff feels, like, oh, it's all that, and then bam, you're just like, whoa, what are those things? It's like, like glow in the dark figures when you turn off the lights,
And just to follow up on that, like the fact that you're colorblind, like how, like that has had to have, I can't imagine as a creative director and an artist, like how have you navigated that for so long?
Well, an easy thing is I love drawing and sculpting, so that's just all form focused, and that like with my illustration, a lot of it's value, so it's fine. And then with statues, it's like, all right, cool, we're making a blue and yellow Wolverine. Pretty sure she'd be blue and yellow. So when I work with a painter, I'm like, here's some reference of blue and yellow Wolverine. They know not to make them like purple and green, because like, you know what I mean? So it's like, that helps a lot. My focus when it comes to color on stuff is like what pops and what doesn't. Like, oh, is this Wolverine too bright and yellow compared to the Cyclops we just did? Hey, that one's a little bit like he's not an 11 on the intensity scale. It's like an 8. Let's make sure the Wolverine matches him. Right now, Wolverine feels like a 9.5. Let's bring it down a little bit. It's stuff like that. And like, oh, hey, is the base pop too much and competes with the character? So I focus when I work with the paint team and painters I work with as freelancers a lot on like the value and like what pops, less about the exact hue of a color. Like, oh, this needs a little bit more green. They tell me that. Like, I think this needs a little bit more green to make it less this, more this. I'm like, that sounds great. Let's do that. Because I work with great artists. So we have a great discussion. I just make sure they know the frame, like what we talked about earlier, the framework. Like, here's the framework, So
awesome.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom-and-pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at their brand new home at 101 Newark Pompton Turnpike, Suite 1 in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at chubsywubsy.com. That's CHUBZZYWUBZZY.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you.
Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at TurboTax.com/beatyourprice.
And now, back to the show.
So you cut your teeth at two of the most notably design-forward companies in the industry. What did you learn from Gentle Giant and Sideshow that you brought to the project?
So, going back to Gentle Giant, there's definitely a few things that stick out to me. One was I had a couple really good mentors when I was at Gentle Giant, like Christian Gossett. He's the creator of this comic called The Red Star. He was one of my early art directors. And then Dan Ketcher, at the time, he came to Gentle Giant from McFarlane Toys, where he was a traditional sculptor. And I learned he was there because when I was getting my interview and I was walking through the studio, they had these cubicles. On top of one of the cubicles, they had like the Elder Dragon I love, this Gravedigger figure I love, like these 3 or 4 figures I love from McFarlane Toys that got me back into collecting McFarlane. I'm like, oh, I love those figures. And then the guy gave me the tour. Like, oh, the sculptor is in that cubicle. So I turned around, I'm like, oh, I meet like a celebrity that I didn't know existed. He was this crazy dude named Dan Catcher. He's awesome. He's like a big brother to me now. He eventually went on to learn digital. I kind of helped him learn ZBrush early on. And his claim to fame now is he was a designer and sculptor on the dragons for Game of Thrones, the original show, seasons 2 through 8. So that was his really
cool.
Yeah, so he went from traditional sculptor, digital design, and creator. And he's worked in film, television, video games for a while now. And then the other guy that was kind of like my third mentor, friend, big brother there was Joe Jung. Remember I had one talk with Dan that really stuck with me, and one talk with Christian Gossett that really stuck with me, and one talk with Joe Jung that really stuck with me. So Christian Gossett, when we were working on Alice in Wonderland, he's my art director on that. He's like, don't go. There's actually 2 things. He's like, don't go for good looking illustration. He's like, we'll make it look good later. Right now we're on early development, so let's push good ideas. Get the team happy with the idea that we can make it a pretty illustration. So I'm like, oh shit. Like that really stuck with me about like, go for visually the good idea first. Once it's a good idea, they can make it pretty. Because a lot of people can make pretty pictures, but like, is it a fun idea? Like, not saying that's the right way to do things, because sometimes illustration is very straightforward and you just need this thing. But for a lot of what I do, it needs to be a good idea first, and a good illustration is like a bonus. And then he told me a thing about scale, like just make sure things are clear with scaling. Like you have something small, make sure you have something big to contrast it or whatever. So that always make sure it's like a lot of the same, right? So that always like the contrast, and that went to detail versus bigger, broader areas, and shapes and smaller shapes, and then color, so that was something that really like kind of affected me across all this other stuff. And then Dan Catcher, and this is before he worked on the dragons for Game of Thrones, but he did the dragons for McFarlane Toys. We were just drawing dragons together one night after hours, and I was drawing some random thing and it looked weird and bizarre, and he's like, that's cool, but he's like, it's kind of like more on the, and this goes about what we were talking about earlier, is like, it's kind of on the grosser side. You should go for something that looks a little bit cooler. And that, the way he said it, it's not like it has to be this, but it really stuck with me of like, I can make this gross and it would like kind of limit the viewership, or I can make it look cool and it would broaden the viewership. So it's like that fine line of what's cool and what is cool, and then what do I think might be cool, right? And it's a weird thing to really define exactly, but it was something that stuck out with me in terms of like, I kind of apply it to like when I like going back to the Toxic Crusader stuff, like what's too gross for me. Not saying like I'm offended, just like, it doesn't really inspire me to do something cool, And then Joe Jung, the one thing he imparted on me that has stuck with me forever is I would design something, I would push it like this far, and he's like, no, go this far and have someone bring you back, rather than like not go far enough and you need to be pushed. So I was like, oh, dang. And that echoed into stuff other people told me later on too. So it's kind of like those are like 3 to 4 things that really stuck with me leaving Gentle Giant. And at Sideshow, I grew more into management, and it like I learned a lot from some of the people there, but really forced me to like read more books on management and psychology of people, and really kind of like stuff I felt like I knew but was never explained to me. So while I was at Sideshow, I read this the book's Dale Carnegie, I think, is How to Make New Friends and Influence People. It's like it was written like early 1900s. It's on like its 20th edition or whatever. But that book essentially was about people skills and management and how to be like, you know, you might be a good people person, but then like how does that like work with management? And that was just like, I mean, most people know this now, but for me, it was kind of like, I don't know if it was ever said to me, but this book made it really clear. It was like, you know, just treat others how you want to be treated. Like if you're giving someone direction, make sure you're giving the direction how you would want to receive the direction. And it's something like I knew kind of, but then that book like just defined it, like just really blotted it out. And I was like, that's cool. And then another book I was reading while I was at Sideshow is called The Spirit of Leadership. And it's a weird one. Like it's a great book in a weird way. I'm ex-Catholic, not really religious anymore, but it was written by like a Christian guy. So like you get like some really good chapters, and there'd be one chapter it's like, and here's why God's awesome, and because I say so. And I'm like, all right, that's an interesting chapter, you know, kind of skim through it a little bit faster and then get to like the meat and bones of like human psychology a bit. But he had a bit that basically talked about like the difference between leadership and dictatorship, and how a leader is there to service the people. Kind of like if, you know, you have people underneath of you, you're here to make sure they have everything they need so they can succeed. And then a dictator believes that the people are there to serve them. So you can choose to be a dictator and just be like, all right, cool, you're all doing this for me. Or you can choose to be a leader and just be like, all right, you're my team, I'm responsible for you. How can I make sure you're supported in everything you need? And then apply that with the golden rule and other stuff too. And it's nice because I feel like I knew those things, but then just having it like presented in front of me, like I'm like, that makes so much sense. So those are like probably the two biggest things in terms of like learning about leadership. Not to say I didn't learn anything from my, you know, the people above me there at Sideshow or anything like that, but like those are two things I learned while at Sideshow just through, you know, literature. I read books one time.
Hey, books are important.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I need to read more. I'm horrible at reading. Now I get so busy. I'm just like, oh, I have some free time. I want to play Tetris or watch a movie with my wife or some like play Hollow Knight. That's like the other video game I play.
So actually, I have another thing that I was just kind of thinking of. You mentioned it when you were like, hey, I taught somebody how to use like digital. You basically kind of came through same time, of course, we did, just learning that like computers were becoming prevalent and digital was becoming a thing.
Yeah.
Analog was starting to fall by the wayside. How did that kind of prepare you for now, or for even just kind of making your way through as you have over the past?
I was lucky that I was
decades.
I guess I was lucky. I was a traditional illustrator growing up, and then I went to school to learn digital because I thought that was my future. So it's kind of like, and then rewinding a little bit further, before that, I have a twin brother and an older sister. So I was raised sharing everything. And like, you're not always right. There's always like, oh, this is for them. You know what I mean? So it's like, I was always kind of raised like an open mind of like, it might not just be about me or this thing I know, but oh, my brother is going through this thing, my sister or whatever. You know what I mean? So being an illustrator, learning about digital, I'm like, oh, I should learn. Like there's something else, like there's something maybe out there that's different that I need to learn. Like, sorry, it sounds like super jumbled mind mush, but I hope it makes sense. Basically, I was like,
no, totally makes sense.
Yeah,
should learn this. So when I got a job at Gentle Giant, I was very like already open-minded to like, I want to learn new things. I'm in California. I just moved here from Colorado, my first job. I know how to draw. I know how to model in, 3D. And I know a little bit of ZBrush. ZBrush was newer back then. So, and then I was meeting all these work professionals that were traditional sculptors, digital guys. So I was kind of like immersed in that world. I wasn't like, I feel for a lot of my friends and colleagues that were just immersed in like traditional for the longest time. Then comes along this new thing that a bunch of younger people can come in, do things faster and cheaper. It's like, I get it. That's scary. It's like what essentially a lot of the industry is feeling now with like AI.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty adamantly against in most cases. Like to me, it's like, there's good uses for AI. And there's and there's innocent uses for AI. Like I really feel for like the Brutal Realm guys. They got beat up a little bit on like their animal body, like future release thing that they unlocked and they used. Because I get it. They were like up against the wall up until a certain point in their campaign. And then they got all this funding. Then so at a point they stopped kind of like investing money in their future designs because they're like, we might not get funding, So I totally get that. Then when they got all this funding, they needed to react. They needed to keep up with their previous projects, all this stuff. And they were just like, and there are two guys that haven't been, and I get it. There's like, hey, here's this thing we can use. And I did this stuff to kind of show an idea. And then a few people caught wind of it and shared. Were like, oh, these guys are jerks. And I was like, no, they're good guys. I think, and then they came in and said their piece and it was like dude, we did not want to do this. This was like a last resort just to show intention. But they have every intention of like investing in artists and stuff like that, which is awesome. And that's important. So sorry, I'm jumping around, Dave, but like that whole thought of like, how did going from traditional to digital era, like how did I like step into that? It's just weird seeing kind of like another one happening now. But I was already kind of like there, so I already kind of accepted. I was excited about, I always viewed everything as an option for anyone to use. So if you're a traditional sculptor, learn ZBrush. Then you know another thing to do your art with. If you're an illustrator, you should know Photoshop. And if you know Photoshop, why don't you learn ZBrush? You're already using the computer to make art. Use ZBrush and make sculpture. So for me, I was always like excited about that. And I got to see friends be excited, like that were traditional sculptors for years, be excited about that and jump in. I got to see people that were reluctant and then they eventually jumped in, they loved it. And I got to see people who were reluctant, hated it, took forever, then they eventually came around. I've seen people who refuse to come around still to this day. I just don't know why people refuse. It's like you could learn something cool, and a lot of those people that refuse it, they're complaining about not getting work. And I'm like, I don't want to say the obvious, but do you think there's a correlation towards your refusal of learning something and not getting work? Like, I don't know. I don't like working with people that are closed-minded to anything. It's like, I mean, not anything, but hey, we work on this. Nope, I only do this the one way. This is the way I do things. I'm extremely rigid in how I work. It's like, okay, that makes it limited in what I want to work with you on because you only want to work this one way. When you work with someone who's collaborative, open-minded, I have an idea, let's try this. Like, open-minded acceptance is like awesome because you might get better results than when it's all on you, only your way. You've been doing it this way for 100,000 years and you refuse to learn digital. It's like, I can only feel so bad for certain people until they like choose to, do it, I don't know. Sorry, did that answer that, Dave? Or did I jump around?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah? Cool.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it too, just the way that, even just in the past 5 years, some of the first interviews we did, toy makers, like big toy makers, folks from Hasbro, Mattel, we're still talking about doing test shots and, doing, paint masters and stuff like that, like the old way, I remember one of the first conversations we had were, explaining to our audience, like what a 2-up was, and like, some of those same people that we had those conversations with, we've had back on the show, and like the sample process is totally different now. Like the EPs come in, and it's the first time they're seeing them, and they're like in the actual plastic that they're going to be in, near correct color, right? And it's all done on a computer. It's all done digitally. They make sure that they have the same Pantone book as the factory, and they're synced up on the color choices and everything, and it makes the process not only just move faster, but it, to your point, like it allows for experimentation and kind of this like digital brainstorming. So it's really cool to see that the industry kind of like evolving so quickly.
It's also made things much quicker. Like, I go back to my own experience. Like, okay, you're waiting for film to be developed, and you can't really do anything until that gets transferred. And now you've waited like a week and a half, so you better have written your ideas down, or I can do it like an hour after I'm done. And now I've shot things digitally. I don't need to develop them. Like, I can just plug stuff in and load it up in less than an hour.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, you can still, some people love the traditional photography process, going to a darkroom, because there's like, process to it. And it's like their meditation. And I get like there's an art to that too. And I get like people still will mix their own paints out of like berries and weird, like, you know what I mean? Some people still make paint.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah.
that's not going to go away. And in a lot of cases, like people thought when the digital like illustration boom blew up in the like 2006, 2009 era with Marvel Comics and cover artists, like everyone's like, oh, we all got to learn digital because now this one guy's coming in and just cranking out like a cover every day. And we would draw and paint one. It would take us a week. Then that swung back because digital artists didn't have originals to sell. And that would be a huge part of a lot of people's salaries was like becoming a name artist, getting paid to do cover work. Then you have this original you could sell for like $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, depending on what it is, who you are, and the importance of it. And that's huge for your income, being able to sell originals.
100%.
So I think there's still going to be thinking of like AI and stuff. When I was talking to J. Scott Campbell, who's a pretty well-known comic book artist. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is. He created like Gen 13. He was a co-creator on and Danger Girl and draws hot chicks a lot. But he and I were having lunch and we were talking about AI. This is like last year at some point. And he's one of the top like people enter like, oh, draw this in J. Scott Campbell's style. And like him and Stanley Lau, who goes by Artgerm, he's another one.
Yep.
Both good buddies. And he's like, I'm not really concerned about that because people are still going to want to hire me because my name sells. Like people like me. People want to meet me. They don't want to meet like the guy who copies my stuff. Like that person might get work, but they're not taking work away from me.
Yeah. And
that was the thing that really stuck out to me. Not like in a sense of like, and I can see some people be like, well, it's easy for him to say, J. Scott Campbell, who am I? But it's like the takeaway from that conversation is, well, make it so people want to work with you. You know? Like, don't be the negative, like, everything's digital, everything's lame, everything's not the way it was, I refuse to change. It's like, cool. Who wants to work with that person? Like, who wants to work with a negative, curmudgeon-y, no, my opinion's the best. Don't you dare give me any feedback. It's like, okay, you know, like it's just I just don't get how people can't make that connection of like you're struggling to find work because you refuse to be cooperative, you refuse to open your mind, you refuse to be like just weird. So that's why, like, even with the Kickstarter, people tell me like, Dave, you're very personable. Get out in front of this more. Get out there. Like, don't just push the product, but like. With my talking head video, I worked really hard with a buddy of mine to like shoot and edit it to make it feel like a funny, weird thing where they get to know me, they get to know the brand a bit more. And I mean, the more that happens, the more you're going to meet people and go on the campaign trail and like shake some babies and kiss some dogs or what do you do on campaign, right?
Exactly
shake
that.
Babies, dogs, yeah.
Yes.
Pet
That's
dogs, shake babies, you know, like that, right? Drop kick rotten fruit. Then people get to know you more and like you, and then they want to support your product more because they like you, you know. And even when people like on certain YouTube reviews, they're like, you know, like, oh, not articulate enough, too expensive. I'm like, dude, that's cool. It's not for you. You know, like, it's just, thanks, cool, not for you. And they're just like, man, hey, he's responding, cool. I can talk. Oh, hey, what? Then they like you more, you know. So I think it's the same with like art in general. Just make it so people. We like you guys make it so people want to listen and watch your video podcast things. Like you're just, you know, like it's, I'm not saying you guys don't know this, but like if people are like, why isn't anyone watching my thing? It's like, I don't know. Are you bringing something to the table? Are you making them want, like, you can't expect things to be given. Sorry, I'm going to stop talking. I talk too much. You guys need to tell me to shut up at any point. Eric, you'd be like, Dave, you're talking too much. I have a thought. Cut me off.
The good thing, this is a mostly talking medium.
Yeah, like
so,
cool.
That's
like,
the thing that's the thing that we love about
it's encouraged.
Is
cool.
There is nothing better when our guest likes to talk as much or more than we do. That's always a good sign.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge. So we've kind of danced around this a little bit, you know, talking about the inspiration, the kind of design elements. But actually, tell us a little bit about your characters here. So, you know, we talked about Shamumu, who, by the way, what a name. Love a good portmanteau.
Yeah.
Bravo, Shamumu. What a name. And it just rolls off the tongue. And then, and Sting Cobra. So, tell us a little bit.
Which is something I like when it's like, what does that look like? Sting Cobra.
Yeah, perfect.
Yep. It makes sense. You hear the name, you see it. It's like, that makes sense. It's like, what am I getting into? Yeah.
So tell us about these characters and what backers can expect, from this campaign.
Yeah. So talked a little bit about them earlier, just like where like their inspiration came from. Like Shamumu was just like wanted a shark with bull horns and became an orca because the black and white gel. And then talking to Erwin Pop on the phone, he's like, "Yo, let's push the expression. Let's go like a little bit more rat think." We both love Venom too from Marvel, and like what's great about Venom, you can draw him almost any way, but really expressive eyes, mouth, crazy teeth, expressive hands. So that's stuff we want to push in like all these characters. And so originally they were just gonna be like the 2 arms, a head, the 1 weapon. In Sting Cobra's case, it was gonna be the claw arm. That was his weapon. He had a little pincer arm. And then when working on the color variants for them, which was gonna be a unique head sculpt to make a new unique. I call them character variants, so it's like it makes a new character. So Bulltooth is Shamumu with a new head, with a little nose, not like a cow nose knocker. And then he has a derpy, weird face. He has a giant harpoon weapon. So new weapon, new face. Sting Cobra's is Van Nom Nom, and he has a derpy face, like a tongue sticking out. And he has an actual like clawed hand holding a knife. And then I was like, looking at this, I'm like, well, Van Nom Nom in a weird way became kind of cooler than Sting Cobra because now he has a hand and a weapon. So I was like, I need to do this. And then talking to Mad Hatter, like I was getting some feedback from him. He's like, yeah, dude, the more ways you can hold weapons, I would like it to have a second hand that can hold a weapon. I'm like, all right, cool. I need to do for Shamumu 2 weapon hands, 2 expression hands. And then Sting Cobra now comes with the giant claw, the pincer hand, and then the clawed hand that can hold the knife and the knife. So it's like that's what they kind of come with now. Originally it's going to be a little bit less, but now it's that. And that way when we get weapons packs, other weapons, then you can have Shamu when he's holding 2 weapons instead of just like he's always anchored to just like the 1 hand with the weapon and then the 1 expressive hand. I'm like, you're right. This needs to be pushed a little bit more this way. So they each come with the 1 head, couple of hands depending. They each come with like a weapon. And Sting Cobra now he comes with his claw hand, a knife, and his stinger tail. So he's a little bit more deadly than Shamumu. And then one of the people stand on their own, like so they have big feet. And actually, the Sting Cobra prototype that's painted and been shown, we're actually updating the feet to be quite a bit bigger and more splayed toes, so they can really bounce really well. But coming from California, like Southern California, we get a lot of earthquakes. I gave them each a base too, so they have a universal base just for like extra stability. So you don't have to use it. You can just have them stand in your collection. But instead of worrying about museum putty or whatever, you just be like, oh, they all come with the same base, and then they stand a little bit extra. So that's what they come with, and they each come with like their own little buddy. So sorry, I wish I had them here. Actually, I'm just shipping them out to another reviewer. It's like that's the weird timing thing. I'm like, I wish I could have only have the 1 copy, so they're kind of like going on their own world tour. But on the Kickstarter page, you can see they each come with their own little buddy because that was a last second thing before DesignerCon last year. One thing I love about Ninja Turtles is when they come with like a little Teshi buddy, like where's a couple of years somewhere. Like, oh, that's like these aren't from Ninja Turtles, but you get the idea. Like the little, like what the Gillman was I had earlier. Like I love weird little buddy guys. So they each come with 1. So I worked with my buddy Christopher Florek, who's an amazing designer, and he designed this little starfish guy and this little camel spider guy. And we got him designed, sculpted, 3D printed, and painted. And at DesignerCon, it was like literally 12 days before the convention. Like, I want to do buddies. And so we did it, and it was awesome. Like, I had Mark Newman help me sculpt 1. My buddy Ariel Moro Ramus sculpted the other. Mark 3D printed them. Chia Zuma, who painted both my figures, and she works for Sideshow Collectibles, she painted them, which is a single color, but it's still great, So they each come with a buddy. So they come with like their weapon, a couple hands, base, their little buddy. And that's like the main package for each figure. And then the variants will come with a color swap variant for the dudes too that match them. And then they come with only their 1 new head. So they don't, neither of them come with like 2 heads. You know what I mean? I just wanted like the 1 head. And then, then we have color variants of Shamumu and Sting Cobra. So the first color variant is going to be called a color swap. So it's Sting Cobra and Shamumu colors and Shamumu and Sting Cobra colors. That way, if someone's like, oh, I really love Sting Cobra, but man, I want a Shamumu arm with the anchor to match, or I love Shamu, but I want the claw arm to match him. They could like mix and match those parts and keep the colors the same. I like the weird mixing of colors.
Yeah.
I thought that'd be kind of a fun one, was just do
Very
like a
cool.
color swap. And a lot of people prefer the color swap version over the main version. So that's been kind of cool, like seeing who likes what. And then we're doing injection glow in the dark. So it'll be like the Super 7 and the NECA figures. Everyone loves glow in the dark. And I have a way to work that into the story. So it's not just like a random, like, oh, every character's glow in the dark. It's like, it's going to be a thing. So it's kind of a fun narrative moment. So they'll be slightly limited in their color palette. So there'll still be some tones and some color to make them pop, like darks and lights and whatever. But they'll be injection. So that'll match all the other glow in the dark figures people have been getting recently. And then I want to do a Kickstarter exclusive only. And instead of doing a gray unpainted one, I decided I was talking to my production manager, Chris Garwich, who's the production manager for the Four Horsemen. So he does all their China production for them. He had his own line called Biblical Adventures.
Yep.
So he's been helping me with the China factory stuff. And he's like, yeah, you can just go clear, inject that, and they paint it one color. So you can get blue for Shamumu, green for Sting Cobra. And that way, you know, he said I could do gray too, but to me, it's like, they're so color focused. This line's so color focused. These feel like the unpainted one. So if you get Shamumu, he's all blue, take his arm off, put on your other Shamumu, it's like, oh, water arm, you know, like water power arm or something. Like Sting Cobra, green energy, you know, like whatever. So I try to make them like meaningful variants, not just like, oh, and I'm doing this, and stone, and bronze, and what, you know, I like clean. I try to keep it clean, but I'm trying to also amortize my tooling costs for these figures, you know? So trying to find that perfect balance. So, yeah.
Makes sense, man. Yeah, and
totally.
I love the one picture you have on the Kickstarter page where Shamumu has some of Sting Cobra's parts attached to him and vice versa, like the swappability factor.
Always a good thing.
Yeah, love that.
Thanks.
Really,
and that's
really
something like with the logo, it's Monstors. Like the ores is another color, because in the toy commercial, it's on the page too. It's or this, or this, or this, or this. And you can just like mix and match, make your own Monster. So that's been, I know like most toys have that, but it's fun to like push that into the marketing, advertising, and the brand of the name. You know, it's like, where's that gonna go? And like then the more Monsters you get, then like you get infinite possibilities. You know, it's like when Wave 2 happens, it's like that many more mix and match combinations between the multiple characters and their variants, you know?
Yeah, so some of the mix and match stuff, you know, go back to Masters of the Universe is like, oh, I found that out from a friend, but it's not on, you know, not a thing they tell you.
Yep.
It's just like, if you know, you know.
They kind of show you in the little, with the Origins figures, they give you like a little thing, like a little pamphlet with the figures, say these are like the removable parts, so you can do it. But yeah, it's not really, like you said, it's not really advertised as like a, and I don't know how it would, like in that, like it's He-Man in the story, in the comic, they don't like swap body parts. So it's like no other story. I mean, I know there's probably something from the 80s or 90s where it's like things swapping things. And like, I mean, I know I'm not the first one. I'm not saying like, I invented this in the narrative world of things, but I think it's fun to like really push it and own it, you know, and just kind of like this probably has been done, but here it's unique to us because of this, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I invented injection plastic action figures just in case.
Good.
No one knew.
We'll commit that to permanent record here.
Mm-hmm. Good.
So you alluded to Wave 2. But what's next for Monstors when the project fully funds?
So I'm definitely a person that can bite off more than I can chew, and I realize I do not want to be that person. So I've teased in the talking head video and even in the artist credits at the very bottom of the Kickstarter page, there's some art for other characters and stuff. But in the talking head video, I show full colored art for Bear Zerker, which is a bear made of bears, Woolly Mammoth, which is a woolly mammoth ram hybrid guy, and he has broken tusks, and he uses one of his tusks as a weapon, and he's mad because he can't find the other tusks. That's part of the story. And then Bone Picker, he's like our bigger villain. He's more sympathetic, like versus Sting Cobra, who's just like a major jerk. Like Bone Picker's kind of like the bad guy that like, you're like, oh, I see why he's bad. Sting Cobra just sucks, you know? But Bone Picker is also the introduction of like the first non-buff brawler bro. So he's kind of like more decrepit. Think of him like the Mumra before he transforms. So Bone Picker is the one that introduces the thing that makes the swappability happen between the figures. So he's kind of like a important narrative figure, and he's cool. He's like a hyena vulture, like one big bulging eye, one little creepy and like creepy hands, and all this cool jewelry and a cool skull staff thing, and hunchback weird. Like I wanted to be like this really cool looking, like evil. Like when you look at him, like, oh, that guy's sad looking but cool looking. Like I can get he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like he has a bone to pick with someone, bone picker. And then we show in the Talking Head video, we show a world map too, which I just wanted to do. So I have like an idea of where the characters are. Well, I've done a character from the sea. I've done a character from the desert. Done a character like, oh, I don't have anyone from the jungle. I don't have anyone from this area. So I can populate like the world map a little bit. So
a bear.
I just love
made
the idea
bears.
of a bear made of bears. It makes me think of Station from Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot who someone commented. It was either a friend who was on Instagram. They said a bear made of bears. It just stuck to me. So he has a giant sculpted head in his chest. It's the big head. And then he has two smaller heads. Those will be the swivel swappable ones amongst other characters. He has like one big arm. He has two, like one medium sized arm, the one really small arm. So one arm per head. And he actually has tiger legs because we're just like, and tiger legs and a tiger tail because why not? So
yeah, I go right back to the Dr. Moreau comment. The bear made of bears.
A bear made of bear. I love it.
And he's gonna be my first like wild card in the story. So like every character is kind of like they can talk, they have their motivations. Berserker is just like the Tasmanian devil meets Godzilla. He just shows up and wrecks stuff, wreaks havoc.
Perfect.
And yeah, he's just that. I just wanted a wild card. So wave 1 is kind of like an antagonist protagonist, and wave 2 would be a new protagonist, a new antagonist, then a wild card. So I think it's a fun little pacing, like a way to split it up, So.
Well, right now, as of the time of this recording, we're recording on Monday, September 16th. You are just shy of halfway there on this project, which is awesome. I mean, super cool. You got 23 days left to go. Just under 300 backers. So, you're definitely on pace to hit your funding goal here, which is awesome.
And we are a show that believes in when, not if.
Yeah, we do not say if, we say when. When it funds.
I was talking with David Silva of Creative Beast Studios. He does the awesome he's had the 4 different dinosaur Kickstarters. They're like the Raptors.
New Jersey represent.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So, are you guys going to Legions Con? Whatever. Probably. You have to, right?
It always ends up being on a weekend where we're not here. So like we're hoping that this time it works out. We can go because it's always a shame. It's like literally, I could say I could walk there, but like it's a short drive, very very short drive.
That's cool. Yeah, David is like, you gotta come. But he's been a great mentor for Kickstartering and just making sure I'm not crazy. He's been a huge supporter of what I've been trying to do with Monstors for the last couple of years. He's become like him and Eric Treadaway were like my two big brothers with this effort. Like Eric Treadaway of the Four Horsemen, saw him a couple of years ago. He's like, when can I get this? I'm like, I don't know. Then last year he's like, when can I get this? I'm like, I need a production guy. I was like, you're using my production guy, Chris, because I want these toys. I'm like, okay. So Eric forced Chris on me in a great way. And then David Silva's like been super supportive of it too. And he's given me a couple like really great opportunities to have like a long phone call with him to be like, am I crazy? How do I do this? And he told me like, usually for these Kickstarters, there's obviously like exceptions to the rule, but you should be looking at getting the first 30-year funding in the first 2 to 3 days and the last 30-year funding in the last 2 to 3 days. Then the middle 24 to 26 days is the other third. So it's like it starts hot and then there's the bell curve in the middle and then it gets hot again. So I just knew it was coming, like seeing the first day where it like just shot up. And then day 2, it like went up a bit more than the third day. It kind of plateaued. I was like ready for it. So it was nice to not be like surprised by that. And I just refused to like sit still. So I'm like hitting up friends. Who should I know? Who should I go on? Who should I give these to do a review? Like I'm printing out flyers and literally driving them to comic book shops and toy shops in like LA. Just be like, I have a Kickstarter. Do you like these toys? I'll give you free stuff. You put some flyers in your thing, and I ran into like a couple of strangers outside of a comic book shop that weren't even at the comic book shop. They were just like hanging out. I'm like, you guys look like you're about my age. Do you like stickers? Like, we love stickers. I gave them a sticker pack of my toys, and they're just like, these are awesome. I'm like, I know. And so it was great. I just ran to like 2 strangers and like, just like a political campaign, just like, check out my stuff without being, I'm a 6'3" dude with long hair. I'm a big person, so I try not to be intimidating. Like, check out my toys, just like, hey man, how's it going? So it's definitely like I'm not sitting and hoping someone does me any favors. I'm getting out there doing the legwork while also having favors from beautiful gentlemen like you who are like, let's have you on the show. I'm like, sweet, let's do it. Because people who are listening to your show, like you said, who don't know I exist, now they know. Yeah. Hopefully they're not like, that guy's a douchebag. Hopefully they go, man, he's cool and his stuff's cool. And a thing I think that's unique about the Kickstarter campaign I'm really excited about too is, I make a living already. This is like, I got docked for this once already, but I don't care. But it is a vanity project because I just want these things. I want to make them because I want to have them and I want to share them with other people. I think that's what most toys start out as, is like someone's like, I want these things, right? And I'm not doing it for the money. Like, hopefully I can make money on this one day, but even my Kickstarter goal, when I hit it, that's like me maybe breaking even. I'm not like, oh, $120,000. Like, dude, tooling costs, unit costs, shipping container costs, Kickstarter, paying my team, credit card charge fund, like all that stuff adds up. Yeah. And people just really are just like, oh my God, these are so expensive. I'm like, dude, I've ran 8 financial scenarios, and this is the best case for a realistic goal where I'm not losing a ton. Like, I might, if I hit 120, I might stay at 120. And that's all I do. I might still be out $5,000 by the end of all this because there's some other thing I didn't think of, But that, to me, the important thing is getting them made, getting them out there. And even one of the tiers in the campaign is a donation set. So like if you want to buy a Sting Cobra or Shamumu, they're $55 each. If you buy both of them together, there's a discount. So it's $99, takes $11 off. But then if you're like, hey, I like Dave, I like this stuff, but it's not really for me. I don't have the space, but you're doing okay financially. You can donate a set. So you can pay, I think it's $80 is the donation set. So, and then I keep that set and I gather them all and then I donate them to Toys for Tots or children's hospitals, whichever way I can. So if anyone out there is just like, hey, these aren't for me and you're doing okay financially, you want to buy a donation set that goes right to some kids that might not be in a good spot right now. And I think that's a cool thing. And then any money, if I do hit certain numbers, my unit costs come down and I'm actually making money on those donation sets, all that money goes back into more donation sets for the kids. So like not a single dollar from that tier goes into my pocket. That's all into the kids.
That's amazing. So, that's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I can tell you, this might seem completely random, but we know for a fact that a large portion of our audience really likes orcas and bulls. So
sweet.
We
not cobras or scorpions are kind of racist towards them or speciesist.
Oh, well,
right? Speciesist.
We can only go off of the information that we have access to, and that bull and orca information is just readily available.
Yeah.
So
it's good. It's good information.
High probability that you're reaching the right audience here.
Sweet.
So Dave, before we say goodnight for the evening, and of course, give you the opportunity to drop the links and URLs and all that stuff. We have a little tradition here on the show where we have a final question that we ask all of our guests. And it's actually been a minute since we've had like a new guest. Like we've had to
have the original one.
Yeah, to have to go back to the original question. So, Dave Weinbrecht, brother Dave.
Yes.
Would you like to fulfill your role as this podcast's James Lipton and ask our final question?
Why, yes, I would. The final question that we ask all of our guests. What is your strangest and or favorite piece in your collection? It can be one of each, or it can be both.
Actually, I read the email like 10 minutes before we went live. So, because I thought it was just going to be the link. I think I told you guys. I'm like, oh, it's the link. I'm like, oh, there's quiet. I got to be ready. So, I have a lot of fun, bizarre stuff. I like, there's just a lot of things. One of my favorite things I can't bring in the room for various reasons. But one of my favorite, most bizarre things when I had it in my office at Sideshow and people came in on tour, my office was full of stuff. People would single this thing out 9 out of 10 times. They like freaking love this. And you guys might be familiar with it, but there's something special about the one I have. Where'd he go? Oh, he's over here. This is my Shin Godzilla Cookie Monster mashup.
What?
Yes, I've actually never seen one of those in like somebody's hand. I've only ever seen pictures. That's amazing.
So this is the original one by the late great Gabe Marquez, a good friend of mine. He passed away unfortunately 2 years ago from cancer. Like tragically, he was too young, too awesome, too talented, too soon. But he was at one point in time, he was posting photos of this thing on his Instagram. I thought it was a Photoshop, and I was commenting like, "Dude, that's awesome." We did like just think it was Photoshop, and he's like, "Thanks." I'm like, how'd you do that?" He's like, and he showed me a picture of this thing. I'm like, "What?" So this is the original. He took a Shin Godzilla toy, chopped off the head, and it's Aves epoxy. This is actual Aves epoxy over it.
Oh my god!
And then he painted the whole. So you can see there's like a little bit of a color difference because he was painting over plastic and playing over Aves. You can see there's a little tonal shift. And this is the first one before he added Grover to the tail because that became a later addition. So this is the pre-Grover tail. And so I was like, that's one of my favorite things I've ever seen in my life. And then when he was going through, he was in the hospital for a while, and I knew it. I'm like, dude, give me your PayPal. He's like, why? I'm like, just give me your PayPal, and I sent him some money just to like help out because I knew he was a freelancer. He didn't have like just freelance artists are just screwed all the time. So I sent him like what I could. And, he's like, dude, thanks. And I'm like, dude, like, he's such a good dude. And it's like, cancer always takes the best people from us and never gets like, and I hate saying that, like, oh, I should choose, like, I wish horrible people die. But it's just like, if it's going to choose someone, I don't know why it chose Gabe because he's talented, not a bad bone in his body, huge inspiration to so many people. But later on, he's like, what's your address? I'm like, all right, I just gave him my site. And then this thing showed up as a thank you gift for me helping him out when he was in the hospital. And then right before he passed, he was working on a deal with Bottleneck Gallery, was going to do a short run of these figures with the Grover tail. And then a couple other artists have totally bit the idea that, and they've been produced and so, and he never gets credit for any of it. Now there's like a Ghidorah Big Bird and a Hedorah, Oscar the Grouch. It's fun. It's awesome. But like this is the original Aves Epoxy head one before they made. Yeah, and I think the one that they made too wasn't Shin Godzilla. I forgot which one it was, but this is the first one he made. So
cool.
Mine.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
My memory of Gabe Marquez, and it's also like one of my favorite things is like I love mashups. That's what like Monsters or take two animals, mash them together. This is like an awesome mashup. I have like a My Pet. Oh, dang it, boy's fallen. I have a My Pet Slash that a guy made. It's like My Pet.
Oh wow,
that's awesome.
My Pet Monster Slash.
That's really cool.
So I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if you're ever on Instagram, if you're not following him already, because you will absolutely love literally everything this guy makes. It's Baxter's Laboratory.
Oh yeah, no, I follow Baxter's. Yeah.
So
All the stuff on there is great.
So
yeah, Toy Snobs did a bunch of stuff. Then Amino Creations, I think, did a bunch. He did like the Skeleton Warrior Ninja Turtle guy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, which is super. Like I love cool. Like that stuff. And I forgot. I can't remember for the life of me. I need to be ready with it more often. But who did the My Pet Slash? Because he did a purple one. And this is the green variant. Because I like the purple one sold out. But I actually like the green variant. Well, like the different colors and stuff. So yeah. So my Shin Godzilla Cookie Monster, my Cookie Monster, Cookiezilla, whatever you want to call it, is my favorite, most bizarre thing. It's an awesome memory of a great friend that we lost too soon. And yeah, so it's like 8 special things to me, all wrapped into one giant purple blue ball, whatever color he is.
That's amazing.
What color is Cookie Monster? Is he blue?
Blue.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's blue.
Blue ball. Yep. There you go.
Yeah, and it was funny. It's funny that you brought that up because when you were talking about your little Keshi friends that come with the Monstors, I have my most recent little Keshi pickup, which is a little blue Shin Godzilla Keshi that we got at Anime NYC.
Look at that.
So
look at
the
that.
little Gashapon guy.
Yep, the little Gashapon one. Well, Dave, thank you again so much for taking the time to join us. We are super excited to see the success of Monstors. Before you leave,
absolutely.
please tell our listeners where can they find out more about the project, where can they follow you, and how do they back Monstors?
Yeah, so the URL for the Kickstarter site's way too long. I mean, I'm sure you guys will put it in the description,
We'll put it in the show notes.
I redirected the main website, www.themonstors.com, because someone took monstors.com. Those jerks, they're not even using it. But we're on Instagram as The Monstors, like at The Monstors, Facebook at The Monstors. And yeah, all those have the links right in the bio, the toy commercials on Instagram, the toy commercials on the page. So it all gets you to the Kickstarter page, hopefully. And yeah, there's just different options for you guys. Again, like even if, like $1 in the digital high five tier would be great, or buy a figure, buy a set, or if you're doing pretty good, buy a donation set for some kids. And then for every 20 sets I sell, like if I take I sold a Sting Cobra and I sold a Shamu with separate, that's a set. If I sell a set, I sell a two set bundle. For every 20 sets I sell, I'm donating a set as well to charity. So the more successful this Kickstarter is, not only does it help it get made, it just helps it get back to the kids. That's my jam. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, we'll make sure that we include links to everything in the show notes, the description, so that way you guys can follow Monstors, you can follow Dave, you can back this project, you can track its success, watch all of the cool videos and stuff that Dave has done for this.
It is a weird thing that people can track it with you. It's just like you get to see how many people backed what. And it's like, it's like they're watching it with you. And you're just like, it's like, I now know what it's like when during the presidential election, when the night of, they're watching like the electoral college come in and the counts adding up. There's like, oh my God. I feel like that's me with this now, Well,
I will say, since we last talked about the backer count, one additional backer has joined the...
Dude.
So
awesome!
It's happening.
Was it a backer? Did they give me $4,000 to bump me over? No, they didn't. Dang it!
Nope.
Not quite over 60 yet.
Nope. 298. 290. You went from 297 to 298. But Dave,
the Kickstarter knew it was
a kismet.
Yeah.
So I mean, with that's a wrap. Dave, brother Dave.
Yes.
Please send us home.
Back the campaign. It's for a good cause.
Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.
Shop Macy's VIP sale, going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.